what you want to have, not the other. Don't. So what was so difficult for me moving here to understand, took me years, is that this was not a refusal of my own person, but it was a refusal of contaminations, I don't know if you say that,
That's right.
contaminations from the outside that I was bringing in that little world. And then I understood that in certain point of views, they are right to make this, because in this way they preserve, they in this way you come here to the Valdorcia and you all say, mine, that's beautiful, that is so clean, and so you see all the people putting the flowers on their windows, and how everything has a care, everything has a reason. The beauty here is not just beautiful, it is much more than that. That is because of what's behind that beauty. It's because you care, you sweep in front of your door, you take care of your little world, and that is what makes it beautiful. And that is why the food is good, and that is why the wine is good, and the magic of this place is that everything is nice. It's not only the food, only the people, only the wine, only the landscape. It's everything. And you feel good and surrounded by the peace, by the beauty, because the people have a sense of identity. I think that is the key. Knowing who you are, knowing where you come from, which is your past, which are your roots, and all these things gives you a sense of identity for which you want to keep things nice, because you know that you will leave them for someone in the future. So this connection, past, present, future, it's wonderful. We don't have that in the city. Even if I'm Italian, in Milano, big skyscrapers and all modern, no sense. You don't even say hello to the neighbor, because there are no connections, and so who cares, and then there is well, that is what, as people coming from outside, these were my feelings, and I think that is the richest treasure I found here, and it gives you become more humble in a way that you recognize that sometimes it's not the fact that you know languages, or the fact that you went around the world and you feel you have treasures inside of you, languages, experience, being open. You think it's better, you think it's more, and then you realize that it is not like that. You must step back, and there is a force in this natural way of being, in this simpleness, but so deep, so strong. I'm sorry, my English is not so good that I can give you all what my feelings are. So, but I think that's much more than my languages, or than my going around in the world and feeling like you can do something. You can't do anything that is better for here. Accepting is the best thing that you can do.
Just the way you are, just what you have, that's your special identity.
Yeah. But and she's offering the breast, and she's offering the breast to the baby, and you can see that this is all sandstone that was originally painted, but unfortunately now all the painting has gone. So from the style of this Madonna, you can see, well, that is what the experts told us, that she is probably of the 15th century, because the style reminds that time frame. You can see, for example, that the Madonna, the way she is represented there is she's a mother. She's not a severe Madonna standing like that. She's a mother, she has a humanity, she has her head on the shoulder while breastfeeding, and that is the typical way the mothers have their head on the shoulder while they breastfeed. So this is a typical, it's a typical feature of the Renaissance time compared to the medieval carvings. You can see there is a huge difference, because the medieval carvings are always very severe, very straight, there is no expression. They symbolize most of the times something, but they don't want to represent the humanity of the figure. You don't read feelings out of the, while the Renaissance time also in the paintings, it gives you a real feeling of the proportions. They are all very good. Here, of course, we are not talking of fine arts. That's a rural art. It's rustic. It's made, you know, in a simple way. But this communicates something. There is a tenderness that goes through. So, two other interesting things. One is that the Madonna here is kneeling. The kneeling Madonna is called the Madonna of Humbleness, because she's kneeling, and that's very rare to find. And the other thing is about her left hand. So look at her left hand and tell me what you notice about that left hand that you find peculiar or...
How many fingers does she have?
Ecco, count them. She has 5 fingers and a thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see? So apparently, you don't notice that. I mean, you had a very good eye, because most of the people would say, oh, she has a bracelet, she has a ring, she has a longer arm, a shorter arm, whatever, 1,000 of things, and then just the last thing is, oh, but she has also 6 fingers, you know. In fact, what the experts told us is that having 6 fingers, of course it was not a mistake, you know, it was made on purpose, and it was considered to be like in the medieval time, when witches were painted or carved, they often used to have 6 fingers, because it was a sign as for their supernatural being. Here, it's considered to be also a sign of superiority, not of not in the evil way of the witches. It's a spiritual figure, it's a Madonna, so it's a sign for her being above certain level. It's also supernatural figure, if you want to. The sound that goes away, or
Yes.
Find
a class.
And so the chapel became a local cult's place. All the women were and are coming here to pray, to say, this is an altar, and here they used to bring offers and flowers, light a candle, say a prayer to the Madonna, because she's supposed to bring milk to the pregnant women. And also my husband Carlo, for our first child, I was without any milk. Nothing. I was in hospital, and the 4th day, nothing. The 5th day, I had to come back home, and I didn't have milk. I was already bottle feeding. And Carlo, without telling me anything, he came here and he brought flowers. He said a prayer. And the following day, I was full with milk. So then he confessed, and he told me, you know why, what happened, I did this. Probably he would never have told me if that wouldn't happen. And I don't know if it was because of his prayers, because of, in fact, I got the milk. So that was a miracle for me, at least. And then, so it was a very beautiful situation to know that he came here, and after that it happened. It was very special. But this is also a way that you can understand how also young people, he was 30 at that age, you know, in that moment, how much we are connected, they are connected to this kind of traditional things, because he remembered that the mother used to do that, and the grandmother and the local women. So maybe there is not 100% of belief, but these are the things where you say, well, it won't hurt, I can do it anyways. And in the same way, when hail comes, or there is a risk of hail, he goes, we have a cupboard at home, the holy branch of olive tree. The Palm Sunday, you go to the church and they bless it. Then you take that branch, when there is hail, you take it out, you burn it, and you shout out of the window in this way with the burning olive branch. That stops hail. That is what the tradition says. It stops hail. So the first time I saw my husband with a branch of tree burning out, I said, what are you doing? Are you have something? He said, no, it helps, it stops the hail. And then the hail stopped. Of course, I said, the hail lasts 5 minutes, the time you go, you take it out, you burn it, you open, and you do a couple of minutes like that, it will stop. No, it's not true, it's because it really helps. Okay. So all these are a little bit of farmers' traditions, but also mixed with superstition and of religion. It's faith. Don't forget that we are Catholic now, but so this area was all Christianized, but before that time everything was pagan. Pagan with the fertility god, and this is also not a Catholic Madonna. The milk Madonna, it's part of the pagan tradition. So still there are women that if you talk with them, they would tell you, yes, of course I am deeply Catholic because I go to church every Sunday, but at the same time they do things that are connected to the paganism, and they are not even aware that they are. They're just part of their life. So
More of a tradition now than a pagan ritual. More of a tradition.
yes. And they didn't disappear, these rituals, because when it was Christianized, the passage was very smooth. The Christians did not destroy these pagan symbols, and they just tried to take the people towards, but in a smooth way. In other parts of Italy and in the world, when the Christians arrived, they made it in the worst way, you know, they destroyed everything. So while here it was smooth, so they overlapped in a way and became a kind of mixed tradition. Was that yours? Okay, let's go down.
We just find the whole thing mind-boggling because Australia's new discovered
Yeah.
in 1770. Yeah.
Sandstone, because we used to have a very big amount of sandstone locally that the people would extract, and these vertical cuts that you can see are because they use round big saws to extract tracts of sandstone. And then what happened, this is one of the major sandstones for in Pienza. You must imagine that this was a whole block of stone going up to that edge, and so slicing and slicing, then they arrived to that level. And in the 1950s they found human bones coming out from the earth. So they just said, okay, let's stop everything, because why do we have human bones here? But you know, it was in the 50s, so they really didn't make any study on that. In the 70s, they reopened the sandstone quarry, and they found out on top of the quarry there was an amazing, huge Neolithical settlement. That is why they found the Neolithical breast over there. Because here they found two huge common graves, all filled with bones and I mean, why these people died is not clear. Either a disease or wars among. Anyways, sliced stones were found, arrows were found. So it was also clear that these people were totally independent, able to hunt, able to farm. They had very big wood burn ovens where they used to bake their breads. Cereals were found. And so this brought all of a sudden all the history of this territory much further back than anyone would ever have thought, because, you know, speaking of Etruscan is already over 2,000 years ago, but speaking of the Neolithical time, that is much further back. So they started to make the studies of all the different levels, and they found out a range of time between 1080 and 5800 before Christ. So the Bronze Age, which is about 1100 before Christ, was the most recent era in this time frame.
So
So-
probably those people put that.
It's a pretty rare thing to have a Neolithical settlement. Now more settlements of the Neolithical time have been found, but in the 70s that was the only existing one in Umbria and Toscana. Now there are more, but well, anyways, it's a very special thing.
Here we have food preparation in our apartment.
The real challenge is figuring out how to keep them.
Try to like that.
The lighting, it's easy, it's letting go
Alright.
of it.
I got a question. Does that family have 2 girls or 3 girls?
The Australian family?
I don't know where
Yeah.
they're from.
I only saw 2 girls, I think.
There were 3 today.
Were there?
You got the older one and then 2 that look like they're about 10 and 12.
Your eighth stomach.
Okay.
Oh.
Question, you guys want to talk about that room that I didn't get on so I can capture some of that too? I mean, after we
We
saw,
can make up all kinds of good stuff. I don't remember anything she said that was legitimate.
Marcia's got notes. We went into the little place with the carving. Here we have food preparation in our apartment.
The real challenge is figuring out how to keep them.
Try to like that.
The lighting, it's easy, it's letting go
Alright.
of it.
I got a question. Does that family have 2 girls or 3 girls?
The Australian family?
I don't know where
Yeah.
they're from.
I only saw 2 girls, I think.
There were 3 today.
Were there?
You got the older one and then 2 that look like they're about 10 and 12.
Your eighth stomach.
Okay.
Oh.
Question, you guys want to talk about that room that I didn't get on so I can capture some of that too? I mean, after we
We
saw,
can make up all kinds of good stuff. I don't remember anything she said that was legitimate.
Marcia's got notes. We went into the little place with the
She
carving.
calls it the Hermitage because it is a Tuscan, well, it ended up being Neolithic in age, hand-carved out cave that was later used by monks in the 12th to 15th century, somewhere in there. But when they found it on their, bought the land with it on there, it had been used for farm animals, and it took Carlo and his father Luciano 3 years to clean out the muck. And in that process, they made all these discoveries, which they reported to archaeology people, and now they can't go any further. Since 1997, it's been frozen, waiting in a list of probably thousands for the archaeologists to come back to. The first rooms we came to were probably, well, the monks, because there was evidence of a building out in front of it, and the method of capturing the water was a method used by the Tuscans that probably was used to empty the water from their burials, but the monks probably used it to capture water. And I don't remember, were there frescoes in that area?
There were none remaining.
Yeah, everything had been chipped
She
away.
suspects that there were frescoes.
Probably
Well, there
Second
were
World
2
War.
openings, like windows that had been filled in that they thought were cisterns or something.
Those aren't windows, those are definitely cisterns.
Cisterns.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Just
they
don't know what-
kind of look like
They're all
that,
full of mud and she doesn't know what's down
Right.
below.
Right.
and they can't do anything.
That's
Can't
correct.
excavate. They suspect there's a hole, that the floor was actually, has the ceiling to something below.
Because of the lining of the pathway leading up to the site, it gives the appearance of a wall, or the top of a wall. And so where we were walking was hard dirt, and they can't excavate that dirt, even though they believe that that indicates another building or another layer below where we were walking. But they're not allowed to do any digging or removing.
Didn't she say too that he was able to, I mean, over 3 years he dug it out on his weekends?
Yeah, I just said that.
Right, but once they found some actual pots,
That's correct. When he started removing the pots is when they shut him down, because he was removing the pottery from the site. And it's a tradition that if you remove anything from your site, that's where they get really persnickety about what you're doing.
And some stuff is already in the local museum.
Right, they did remove some,
And
like
one in
the,
Chiusi and the other one here in Pienza.
they took a tombstone out that dates to, was it 1432 or something?
Oh, I got it in my book.
Early 15th century.
Which had bones in it.
And they
left
found
it in the
bones, and that's
car.
correct.
Book's in the car.
I'll go get it out of the car.
What's up to you?
But in
You
the
can take
deeper into
mine.
the site is where she started showing us more
Yeah,
pagan
not crazy, but I'm more
figures carved into the walls, which would predate,
Got
the
milk.
Christianity
Somebody yelled at me.
and so they know that it goes prior to Christ. They just don't know if it's 50 years before Christ, 100, 500, they don't know how many years. But the presence of that bronze breast,
That they found out in on the hillside, right
That
out in
became
front.
Neolithic in
Right.
age though.
right, they were
Evidence probably from that settlement that was up above.
up above the
Everything,
sandstone
yeah.
quarry.
And that was the first Neolithic settlement discovered in Tuscany. And since then, there have been several others.
You guys are great.
But-
And somewhere in there in that second room there was the other entrance that we left from, where it was definitely two Etruscan tombs, or
Yes, there was all of the historians and archaeologists agree that was in fact an Etruscan tomb.
fascinating. I wish I could have got all of her on it. She wouldn't let me film in there. I could take pictures, and we got some. Couldn't film.
That she'd be accused of later
Oh.
saying was not
Oh,
accurate
not
or
accurate.
true.
Probably not truly endorsed by the
Oh, okay,
historians.
so
Or the locals accusing them of taking stuff out or something too.
so that was to protect her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or that's the reason she gave us.
Well, that's all that makes sense, because I wasn't going to do any harm filming. And that's all I could figure. She didn't want it on tape.
Yeah, because she said we could take pictures, so
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what was being said. That's the issue.
This is Tim and Terry's room.
Oh,
Right.
Lord, don't show mine.
Yeah, when it's clean, not when it's like it is today.
Wishing out of here, sleeping pill. What time did we sleep to?
Okay, now I'm going to turn all the way around from their bedroom. Okay, it's still May 6th, and we're in Siena. We're meeting our tour guide in a few minutes here. It's almost 3 o'clock, and we're meeting him, I believe, in front of this church in Siena. And I'm too close to really give you much detail on the church, but we're near the stadium, and there's the Duomo. It's on the other side of town. It's a nice, bright, clear day, but it's getting a little breezy, and so it's a little cool, but not uncomfortable with our jackets on. These are the streets of Siena. So we're really here just on the outskirts of the city, and hopefully I can get you some more as we go through the tour. Interestingly, where we're meeting for the tour, near this church, San Monica, is not far from where Marsh and I stayed on our first trip. And I think that's the hotel right there, Cieli. Right there, actually. It shows you the hotel, Cieli.
Here they are.
I started to tell you about the 17th district, and every district here has a museum, a church, and a baptism font. And we are still in the district of the Dragon, and what you see here is bronze boy. This is the baptism font of the Dragon. Because in Siena, people are baptized twice. The first one, obviously, is the Catholic baptism, we're in Italy, and the second one, the district baptism, the Contrada baptism. That's not religious, not made by a priest, but by the chief of the district. That only tells you where you belong to, and then you don't change. Who is baptized here will be a dragon for the whole life. Sorry? Lago. Nothing. And people very often in the days before the Palio, there's a horse race where these districts compete against each other. Did you hear about that? That was the only square I tell you more about. And in the days before, they like to go and go to Paris. Because so they can avoid the problem with the house. And then the days before this was very high tension. But the district life is important authority, not a very strong feeling of belonging together. And the consequence is that we have only low criminality here, because the district life creates something like a social net that keeps people from sliding on the wrong way. Something very important. And sometimes I'm really surprised because very often the old traditions during the centuries lose any significance. But I can swear you, the district life is something very real, very authentic and still intensive. It's really, really important for the life here. And you can join the district also coming from outside. For example, a friend of mine, he came from Rome to study here because in Siena we have also very old and very big university living in the Snail district. And then he wanted to join the district and was baptized, made officially a Snail. The only important thing is that you bring the enthusiasm. That's not something you do just for fun, but that has a meaning, that you can contribute then to the life of the district. Something very important for Siena. And meanwhile, we have district competitions a bit everywhere. It's also a bit of fashion, but also a bit of stuff. This is instead here the Palio. That's something that exists in centuries. So not nothing now invented for the tourists. That's not made for the tourists. Tourists are only allowed to see the Palio. That's something they make for themselves, something very real. So now we go to Metro.
Heading into Siena.
Style of Siena, the Gothic style, the pointed arch. But today then we must say what we see here is new Gothic, because the facade was completely remade and changed at the end of the 19th century. There was the season of the Gothic revival, when they made everything more Gothic than it was in the Middle Ages. That happened here as well. The original building was from the 13th century. Here on this side instead, we have a nice example for the Renaissance style. This is a building of the 15th century. Instead, this one that is completely intact is of the 16th century. The package of the 21st. So on this square we have three centuries represented. All three buildings belong today to the bank. You see the name written over there, Monte dei Paschi di Siena. Here is the headquarters of this bank. And by the way, this is also the bank who offered the colored windows inside the church San Domenico and so forth. And this is the oldest public bank. Obviously, we had already private banks before, but this is the oldest public bank. And they founded this institution to fight against the moneylenders. But we can say that the reason for the foundation was somehow charity, to help the people in difficult situations to overcome that. Now it's a normal bay. And the heads we see here, these are important personalities. Right in the middle of the town, we have a poet, Dante Alighieri. Then a few heads more on the right, the one with the long beard is Leonardo da Vinci. On his side, Michelangelo, so very important heads in the Gaudium. Instead, the man in the middle here, a man of the church, as you see, but he was also economist, and he was already, in the 18th century, already for the free exchange, the free market. Obviously, the bank appreciated that and put him here, this one, statue. And this small square is one of the three spots in Siena that don't belong to a district, because all inside the walls is divided into 17 districts. Neutral is only this square here, the main square Piazza del Campo, and the cathedral. The rest is divided. And where the borders of the districts are, you have always these small panels. You see that small yellow-green panel over there? Here starts the Caterpillar district. And everywhere where the borders are, we have these panels. And the borders are fixed since nearly 300 years, how they are today. So they don't struggle anymore about the borders. About other things, but the borders are clear. So we go a little bit further on. This square is Piazza Tolomei. The Tolomei family lived in this building. And over the entrance you see the coat of arms of this family with the three half moons inside. And that means that the family contributed to the foundation. And this family, again, longer than the sea. It was until the middle of the square, more or less. And at the end of the 18th century, there was a hard earthquake, but the first time the church fell down, and then they shortened it and put this new classic facade. And inside this church, we have the meeting of the government before the town hall was built. And later on, we see the town hall before the meeting was here inside. And another thing we see here is the shield. There's a lot of these shields on here. And probably you know the story of Shimo feeding the twins over the Revo Park. In Siena, the story continues for another generation because Romulus killed his brother, Remus, and Remus had two children, Ascius and Senius, and they had to escape from that bad uncle, and then they came here and founded Siena. Senius, Siena, obviously this is 100% legend, and Siena invented this legend in the Middle Ages because they wanted a nice foundation story, possibly with Roman origins. And then they put the Shiva everywhere in town to find it. We go a few meters. So where we are standing now, this was a very important connection point with the past, because here passed, let's come a little bit. Well, Siena is closed for the traffic. But you see still a lot of cars because we have a lot of special permissions. Obviously all the delivery services have to come and that's right now at the moment. So back to this point here. This was a very important point because here passed the Via Francigena, the Frankish road, and that was the most important connection road in Europe. All the people who traveled, first of all the pilgrims on the way to Rome, but everyone else, merchants, kings, whoever, used this road. And where we passed along, this was the northern of the stretch. And then in the pharmacy, you reach Rome. But with more wide, what you use it, because at this point, the train is going to turn around the corner. And the building you have here in front of you, this is called Loggia della Mercanzia, for the commercial exchanges. And here was also a court if something in the business was not clear. And also a jail where they could keep the people until 8 days, but only about business problems. So clean and unclean business, here was the boss. And the statues you see here, they were added in the 15th century, they're all saints. Over there with the keys we have Peter. Here we have St. Paul, and the two in the middle are two of the four saint protectors of Siena. And all these saints look into one direction, the direction of Florence, because Florence was the enemy of Siena for centuries. So they should keep an eye on the enemy to protect the town. But then something went wrong because in the end Florence was doing terrible. But the last soccer match And behind this square is the main square that's the big camp. Now, again, the question is, who does not want to go inside the cathedral? Here we reached already the heart of Siena. This square is called Piazza del Campo. And here they organize also the Palio, the horse race. And that happens twice a year, 2nd of July and 16th of August. And of the 17 districts, only 10 participate. And the 7 who don't run this year, they have the right then to run next year. And the 3 that are missing to reach the number of 10, they're chosen by law 3 days before the race. Oh no, sorry, 1 month before the race and 3 days before the race is choosing the horse by law again. So until 3 days before the race, they don't know which horse is running for which district. And in these 3 days, then the horse lives inside the district in a very comfortable place. This name district has given a small Baroque church that has become the house of the horse. There's a sign then written Casa del Cavallo. And someone of the district takes care of the horse day and night to avoid that the enemies do something to the foot of the horse. That happened in the past. And the rule is you cannot change the horse. If anything happens to the horse in these 3 days, the district is out. So they really have to take care. And for example, last year that happened, that in one of the trials, because in the 3 days before the race, there are also 6 trials here, morning and evening, here on the square. And in one trial, one horse fell down, got hurt, not severely, but a little bit, could not run, and therefore the district could not participate on the race. We had only 9 that last year. That was terrible. They suffered really. And when they do the race here, in just a second I show you how it looks like. It looks like this when they make the race. You see it's quite busy. A bit of more people and even more degrees. And they run here around, and in the middle also where we are standing, the people stay and it's free. They don't pay for it here in the middle. It's an outside in front of the shops and bars they put tributes, and there it's very expensive to sit there. You have to pay a lot. But here it's free. You don't see everything from here, but a little bit you see from everywhere. And the horses run here around, and the start and the finish is over there in front of the pharmacy. And they run then, and where the horses run, they put dirt on the ground. And they run only 3 laps, that's all, not even 90 seconds the whole way. Obviously they have a lot of but that doesn't always work out, obviously. But the person who cleans up can dream about the victory, at least for a couple of hours. Like everything that happens in the days before has some special meaning about the victory. It's then all an interpretation. And during the race, very often they fall down, especially that corner over there, that's a very difficult one. In fact, in front of these buildings over there, they have thick mattresses. Sometimes they really smash against these mattresses. And if the jockey falls down and the horse continues to run and drives first, the district wins. Because horse without jockey can win, jockey without horse not. Useless to run, because the one that counts is the horse. And then you should see when the horse arrives, the people of the winner district, they run there, they embrace the horse, they kiss the horse, and they really cry tears of joy. And the others cry tears of desperation. It's full of emotions. And then obviously they celebrate the whole night in the winner district, but the big victory dinner that has to be organized, they have to cook for 3,000–4,000 people, that happens then in autumn. And we have every year 2 winners, both celebrate in autumn then. And they celebrate that with a lot of fantasy, for example, once when the forest was the winner, they transformed the own district into a forest. They brought trees and bushes. On the entrance was written magic forest. And the people who participated, they became beings of the forest, like elves with the long ears and things like that. So every time they look about a theme, and then following the theme, they transform the district in themselves. A lot of fantasy. They don't stop celebrating, really. It goes on and goes on. And one main point of the celebration is the kidding of the enemy district. That's one very important thing. Normally the enemy district doesn't come out anymore for a long time. And what the district wins is a piece of painted cloth. It's more or less high like that, large like that. I can show you a photo, a small one. Here's one example, but normally it's more colorful. For example, in July we had a completely red one. That's the prize, that's what they fight for. And that ends up, after all the celebrations, inside the museum of the district. That's what they fight for. Instead, the jockey is hired by the district and paid by the district. He's a professional and quite able here. The jockey is from Slovenia, for this race. Three laps only. And also the start can take a long time. The start, I'll show you how it looks like the start. It's a bit small. Can you see this here, this photo here on the top? The start, as I told you, is over there, and they put the 2 rows, and 9 horses are fallen in between these 2 rows, and the 10th horse comes in run. When all the 10 horses are in between the 2 rows, the first row goes down and they start. And so we have very often false starts. And the first one, I was here on the square, because it was in the 80s, they had about a dozen false starts. And then it was so late, everyone was so exhausted, the horses, the jockeys, everyone. And then they decided to make the race the next day. So I was standing here hours and hours and hours. But that was the only time that happened, just because I was standing here on the square. Normally that doesn't happen, but 2, 3, 4 starts, that's quite normal. That the first start is always the good one, that's more an exception. Very incredible. Questions about the cardio? The white pillars are connected. And then on the other side of these pillars. Inside, since 1310, also today we have the town administration. On the right side is the entrance to the offices. On the left is the entrance to the museum. If you have time, there's another beautiful museum inside. And this is also the entrance to the Eiffel Tower. And this tower is called Torre del Mangiare. Mangiare means to eat. They call it also the Örnsköldsvik Tower because it was expensive to build the tower. The man who was ringing the bell, he spent his money always in eating. So therefore the nickname the Örnsköldsvik Tower. And if you have a look on the floor, you can see the bricks and the travertine line. And there are 9 slices because the bricks were added here when we had the government of the Nile. It was a quite sure government from the end of the 13th to the middle of the 14th century, for about 70 years. That was also the season of the biggest bridge. Best time of the era. Until the middle of the 14th. They're also the most important buildings. And another thing on this square, the fountain over there. This fountain is called Fonte Gaia, and Siena has no river, therefore water was always a very big problem. And they created already in the Middle Ages an under-earth channel system to bring the water from outside to the different fountains of the city. And they built 25 kilometers of channels under the earth, extraordinary work. And passing these so-called contini, the water arrived on the square already in the 14th century. But the sculpture was built a century afterwards by Jacopo della Quercia. But what is standing there today, this is a copy of the 19th century, because the original suffered also during the patio, because the people climbed up to see better, and was ruined, a piece here, a piece there, and what is left is now in the museum. They're still restoring. And here on the top, you see on the lower part, this kind of arch, the pointed arch with the lower round arch underneath. This has the name the Siena arch, the Arch of Siena. This combination with the pointed and the round one underneath. Inside also a lot of the surround, or what makes it the part of the Republic of Siena. That's very awesome. And in the middle, the big coat of arms with the 6 bars, maybe you know it already. This is the coat of arms of the Medici of Florence. After they conquered Siena, they put also the old symbol here and there. And someone asked me also the thick wall that is not far from the Church San Domenico. You see that? That's the wall of the fortress built by Florence after they conquered Italy. That was in the middle of the 16th century. After that, this big fortress was built. Obviously, it was built to control Siena and also to show the dominion of Florence. So it was not very pleasant for the scientists. Yeah, and also the soldiers there, the soldiers there, but only today it's only a place of pleasure. They make festivals in summer, open air cinema, and inside the walls is a music school, a jazz school, and also the Enoteca Italica, where you can taste 800 types of wine. Who loves wine? That's really paradise there. I don't know how you come out there, but it's really very beautiful. And on the top is another big symbol. That's the symbol of another saint. The two most important saints of Siena were Saint Catherine, I presented you already, and here when Catherine died, another saint was born, Saint Bernard. And this was his symbol. It's, originally this is the symbol of Christ, the 3 letters from the Latin words that means Jesus saved all the mankind. But then this saint adopted the symbol, and when he was reaching around, he carried it always with him. And he wanted also that it was fixed here on the town hall. The big sign, it looks like a sun. Except the small chapel you see there on the side, the only thing that goes in the square. This was built only 4 years after the terrible plague that hit Siena. It was terrible in 1348, and 4 years later they built this chapel with those who survived. Say thank you that they're still alive. There's a big building over there, Palazzo San Sidonio. I wish you notice it now more because this was recently restored. And try to guess who's the property of this one? Exactly. So you have questions so far? Ready to move again? So take care, this car is moving now. We wanted to stop only a moment to show you another border between this over there, and here on this side, Aquila, the eagle, and the same on the opposite side. And so everywhere where the borders are, we have these panels. And there have been many changes. There was also a moment when we had more than 40 districts in the past, and there were a lot of changes. But since about 300 years, we have the 17 we have today. Over here, another compass, and then we'll
Una caldissima e una all'aperto.
Just looking from one of the alleys going down into the Campo, which is down in there.
who owned this building before, but actually this statue represents another made for the people. And then they substituted it with a nicer one, throwing it out. And the family bought it and thought we want to spend off a half price. And then they were asking the name of the old code. So they decided the statue. They decided what? The statue. The statue represented another code, not this one. Not the one that is written underneath. Here we go. Yeah, in the courtyard of this building. This building is called Palazzo Chigi Saracini. You see it also written over there on that panel. And the last owner, yes, from this building, from the Chigi family, founded in the 1932 a music academy called then with his name La Chigiana. And they organize specializing courses in summer and free courses students and teachers come from all over the world, a very important institution for the music. And inside is also quite an important collection of works of art, and all together, the building, the music school, and the art collection is now in the hand of? Exactly. But probably it's put like that because to keep this all alive, only a bank can afford that. And this building has also a tower. We don't see it from here, we see it then from the facade. And from the tower of this building, we had the first live report of the battle. And that was one of the many battles that Siena fought against Florence. And here we're talking about the battle of 1260. And that battle is so important for Siena because they had a big victory in that battle. 9 years later was a battle in Kollur and Siena lost again, but nobody remembers that one. Nobody. And then about 300 years later, exactly then in the 50 and 55, was the definite victory of Florence over Siena. Very hard to digest. They're still working on that. But you won't believe it, in spite of all, they still celebrate every year the victory of the 1260. They really love to remember that one. And that battle was a bit outside. So there was a man standing on the tower of this building. He looked down on the battlefield and he shouted down to the population what was going on, who was beating up who, and that Siena at the end was the winner. So direct live report without technical help from the tower of this building. Because that was in that moment still the highest tower, that was still in the century before the tower of the town hall was built. And sometimes they talk about that battle also for actual things like soccer matches. Because since a very few years also Siena is in the first Liga, in the A, and the first big match they had against Florence, they brought writings reminding the battle, the victory of the 1260. Florence instead brought writings saying, well, you were the winners of the battle, but we were the winners of the war, so to be clear. So they still talk about these old things. So obviously they don't fight anymore, but sometimes when they talk about each other, you can still feel some tensions, let's say. Okay, ready to move again? And if you have to look on the start here, you see again the Gothic style, but also in this case we have some changes. The actual facade is only from the 18th century, but they were always following the Gothic style. That was the style they had in the moment of the most glorious period of Siena. And then over there, the building there, the Renaissance style as well. That's the building of the 15th century called Palazzo delle Marchese. And this was built for the sister of a pope. And inside over there is now Center for Modern Art. It's not a museum, but they organize exhibitions, and international artists come here with their work. At the moment there's an exhibition of artists of South Africa, always something different. And as you see, they hide in Siena, then the tendency to hide the modern art, the contemporary art behind very thick walls. It's very difficult to find something outside. And behind that building, we turn right and we make our last slide. So we reached on the top, and here we see the cathedral from the side. We saw it on the beginning of our tour from the opposite side, from far away. And the cathedral is a very complicated story of the construction. Before there was a church into another direction. Then the cathedral itself was consecrated in the 12th century, but that was not yet what you see today. There have been a lot of changes. One big change was in the beginning of the 14th century, when the cathedral was lengthened. That's from here on the right side of the dome. It continues over there, the elongation. But that was still not big enough for Siena, because they wanted absolutely a bigger cathedral than Florence had, obviously. And though they had the big project of the so-called New Cathedral. And the project was that this part was supposed to become the transept, and we are standing here in the planned long aisle. This high construction over there was supposed to become the facade of that new cathedral. Where we have the yellow wall, behind there is the police headquarters today, and this would be the main entrance of that new cathedral. Can you imagine what a plan? Huge. Too huge maybe. And they worked on this plan for about 9 years, and then the plague came here. Not only here, whole Europe suffered under the plague. And the plague passed quite often, but that one, the one of the 1348, probably was the worst, with a lot of victims everywhere. And today we have in Siena nearly 60,000 inhabitants. Can you hear me in spite of the music? And before the plague, probably it was not much less, There are different numbers about the population from the 14th century, but it was nearly comparable with the population we have today. And during that plague, at least the half, maybe even 2/3 of the population died. That was the end of everything. Life stopped completely in that moment. And for sure they stopped this construction. They had other problems in that moment. And later on they discovered also problems with the stability. If you have a look on these pillars, okay, they're leaning because the ground has settled. The ground was not able to carry such a heavy building, and therefore the government was forced to give up definitely the plan of that new building. And the brick wall was added afterwards because this pillar should divide the middle from the right long aisle. And we had also here the pillar to divide the middle from the left long aisle. We can still see the white rocks on the ground. We took them off. So what was okay they took off, what was not okay they left, and that's what we can still see today of that incredible project of the new cathedral. And behind the brick wall is since the 19th century the museum of the cathedral, with some originals of the cathedral that have been substituted to top this facade over there. Yeah, right on the top. There's a beautiful view on the top. And if you have to look here on the side, all these holes, that's not a hotel for the pigeons, even if they use it, it's a hotel. And this was for the scaffolding, because in the past they did not use the scaffold starting from the ground as we do today, but during the construction they put wooden poles inside these holes and then benches on these poles, and so slowly they worked up. And inside the town hall there's a very beautiful fresco of the 14th century where you can see that. You can see the working process, how they were standing on this scaffolding. So after this uncompleted cathedral, we go then to see the completed one. We could just maybe already take the tickets here inside the museum, so if there should be a queue, we don't have to wait. So I could collect the money, €3 each. And even those who don't come inside, stay a little bit with us.